Live from our studios on Florida's Suncoast, this is ABC7 News at 7, your Suncoast News.
Welcome back. Joining us for more on tonight's topic is Christian Ziegler, Republican State Committeeman for Sarasota County, and Ed James III, a Democrat running for the Florida House. And I appreciate you both joining us tonight. And really, let's get to it, because no matter how you feel on the issue, it really was an extraordinary scene at the White House today. The president, if you didn't see it, even got emotional at times. And let's start off with a clip of the president from today.
Our unalienable right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, those rights were stripped from college kids in Blacksburg and Santa Barbara, and from high schoolers at Columbine, and from first graders in Newtown. First graders. And from every family who never imagined that their loved one would be taken from our lives by a bullet from a gun. Every time I think about those kids, it gets me mad.
It is a clash of two parts of our Constitution, the right to live in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the Second Amendment. Christian, let me start with you. Obviously, the nation is split. There was one poll in terms of the open carry legislation in the Tampa area this week, which shows 49% of the people support open carry, about 49% oppose it. So how do we get past this polarization, because there are people dying out there, a lot of them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, with the president, he made an emotional speech today, but at the end of the day, what he's proposing is not really going to change anything. It wouldn't have stopped the tax in Newtown. It wouldn't have stopped the tax in California recently. America is divided on this issue, but it's something that's an important issue and really should go before Congress. This isn't an action that I believe that should be done by the White House unilaterally, going away from Congress and going away from the people's representatives. And that's probably the biggest issue here, is it is a polarizing issue. There's people on both sides, but this is something that should be discussed in the legislative branch. That's where it's most appropriate.
Well, I mean, what exactly are you opposed to? I mean, some of these provisions, including just having more FBI agents available to conduct background checks, asking Congress, going to Congress and asking them for more funding to treat mental health issues.
And again, these are issues that should be discussed in Congress, right? I mean, there's kind of two things at play. You have the executive order where he's bypassing Congress, and then now you have the issues that he's bringing up. Now, when you look at this, I mean, at the end of it, we got to remember that criminals don't care about laws. I mean, criminals break laws, they ignore laws, they don't care about laws. What we're seeing here is the president's cracking down on law-abiding citizens being able to go out, get guns for their safety, for the safety of themselves and their family. And that's what's at play here, and that's why it's a dangerous action by the president.
If I may respectfully disagree, first I would say that one of the things that Christian, you and I would both agree on is that the carnage in this country is absolutely unconscionable. And for the White House to sort of sit tacitly and allow this to exacerbate would be folly. And I think President Obama and the White House did a noble deed in laying out this program, because inaction is certainly not the best course of action. And if I may finish, actually a recent group of 23 law professors came together, and this was a bipartisan group of legal scholars, and they found that the executive branch actually enforcing the law on this is compatible with the will of the Congress. So the executive action to ensure robust enforcement of the law is actually compatible and within the legal authority of the branch.
So what that he proposed today would have stopped Newtown?
Oh, I can't certainly say that there's...
Because he brought up Newtown as an example, so I'm curious, what did he propose that would have stopped Newtown?
Well, what I can tell you is that that program actually speaks to several issues that we have in this country. Number one, mental health. Mental health is a huge issue, one issue that has certainly been swept under the rug. But certainly I think what President Obama was saying is that we need to make sure that we don't curtail the Second Amendment, but we make sure that criminals do not have access to guns.
Let me put something up on the screen right now, because there was a incredible graph that was in the news recently showing the number of deaths from firearms, murders by firearms, and people who died from motor vehicle accidents. And we have reached the point where more people in the United States are dying each year from gun-related crime than in motor vehicle accidents. So if we can't get past this issue barrier where some people want what they consider reasonable restrictions in terms of, or even background checks, and people who say anything along those lines is a slippery slope to taking guns away, then what's to come?
Look, we have a clear Second Amendment right to bear arms, right, to protect ourselves. When you look at those stats, actually, what they fail to mention is 60% of the deaths that come from gun violence are actually suicides. So when they look at those numbers and they elaborate on those numbers, they don't break that out, right? They're trying to put fear in people to really be able to apply these restrictions on guns and being able to carry. And I personally believe that law-abiding citizens with guns and being able to have guns in their possession is not only safety for themselves and their family, but also for the public when they're out in the public, because you never know what happens. And if you look at these specific cases, you look at the movie theater, you look at these schools that are being shot up, there's already laws on the books that you can't bring a gun into a school, into a movie theater, and criminals just ignore those laws. And that's what's going to happen here. I mean, this is really attacking law-abiding citizens and our rights instead of going to the root problem, which are the criminals. And that's a whole other issue with mental health that should be discussed.
Before we dive into the mental health issue, the president also spoke about that component of what he is saying today, and let's take a look at that.
Each time this comes up, we are fed the excuse that common sense reforms like background checks might not have stopped the last massacre, or the one before that, or the one before that. So why bother trying? I reject that thinking.
Right, that wasn't the soundbite on the mental health issue, but there is a different obstacle when it comes to that. And we did a whole show on that a couple of weeks ago, that that some people, especially people who are concerned about civil liberties, don't believe that you're going to solve this problem by depriving a class of citizens of their constitutional rights, and that is people who suffer from mental health issues.
Oh, I would certainly say I am a Democrat, but I am not anti-gun. I am pro-responsibility. And I think that's the approach that President Obama was taking today, saying that we need to take more responsible measures, one of which was ensuring that dealers notify law enforcement about the theft and loss of guns, removing legal barriers, preventing states from reporting relevant information to the background checking system. So these are all sort of measures that can curtail gun violence. They're not taking away guns from people, and I think we've sort of gotten caught up in this divisive rhetoric about taking away guns, that we're not addressing the issue, and that this program addresses, which is again removing legal barriers, preventing states from reporting very important information to the federal government.
But again, these are issues that are appropriate for Congress, and that's the legislative branch. This is where we have discussion, we have votes, and we have individuals from across the country that represent their local communities. And that's where these issues should be discussed. They shouldn't just be done by the stroke of the pen and by one man's choice. That's not how our country's set up. That's not our Constitution set up. And that's really the biggest issue at play that I'm very, very concerned about.
Well, I mean, just on the merits of the executive action as Ed described, do you have a problem with what that says?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this, look at the executive action. When you look at the mental health side of it, for example, they're talking about a national database, about putting mental health into a national. I used to work actually in Congress, and I got a letter about 6 months ago that the Chinese hacked in, got my personal information, got my social security number, got all my information that the government had on file for me because I was an employee at the time, and they hacked in. Who else can hack into that? This is a big issue when you start putting our mental health records into a national database. That is very, very scary.
But let me ask you this, Christian. What do you do with people who are suffering from significant mental health issues, who have not been convicted of a crime, who have not been adjudicated by a judge that they are mentally incompetent. What do you do about their access to guns?
So again, that's a very difficult issue, and it's a legitimate issue because mental health is a problem in our country. But it's one that Congress should take up. They should have hearings, they should have witnesses, they should have experts come in, and then they should have a discussion and a debate and then a vote, and then send that to the president for his signature. This is not something that should be decided by the White House with having any other discussion or involvement.
What would you propose, Christian?
I don't have a proposal right now. My position here is that is a very complex issue. This isn't something that you can just do by executive order. I personally think that, look, for individuals with many... hold on 1 second, I'm answering your question.
Do 85% of Americans not want background checks in this country?
Let me address your first question, the mental health. I personally think that it's such a serious issue that it's a dialogue that needs to happen. It's a national dialogue that needs to happen, but it needs to happen in Congress. This is not something that can be just decided by one man with the stroke of the pen. And that's my issue with this, because these are important issues and they should be national discussions.
One of the components of the executive action is basically clarifying whether businesses from a store or at gun shows are selling firearms or not. That is part of the existing law. What is the legal objection in terms of making sure that business owners clarify that they are in the gun selling business?
You know, that's an interesting one because I've been reading about it today, and I don't think that there's any clarity that the president has really given so far because he hasn't really defined that portion of it. So it's difficult to really speculate on it without seeing more details on it.
Okay. We're going to have to leave it there. I know we could go on about this issue forever, but Ed and Christian, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be back in just a moment.